And I'd love to believe in God, and some of my friends who are believers tell me I have to have faith. And this is something I can try to do but doesn't work. Maybe it's because I was trained in science or whatever. I really have to have reasons or rationality to deal with any questions, including ultimate questions of God. So what is faith, and how does it relate to a rational way of thinking?
The question of what faith is and how to get it and whether it's important, whether it's okay, whether it's intellectually acceptable, whether you're doing anything wrong if you have faith, whether you need reasons in support of faith, those are all really important and really difficult questions. And I wish I had a really straightforward and simple answer. I think there's a few things.
You can be complicated.
Okay,
I'm ready for complications.
I'll rule out a few things. I think faith is not something that's contrary to reason. It's not like, well, faith is belief in something that you know ain't true. But I think faith doesn't require reasons in the form of a proof, or at least not reasons in the form of a proof that you can hand to somebody else, and once they get them, they've got the same proof. So it may well be that we've got people that have faith have something that's provoking it in them or leading them to it, and maybe it's even a kind of evidence, but I certainly don't think whatever it is they have is something that's so easy just to hand to somebody else and give them the same evidence and they'll get in the same position.
Well, a lot of people have tried to give it to me and it hasn't worked so far.
Right, and well, I'll take your word for that. I don't know what it takes to get it, you know. Pascal said, so go to masses and take the holy water and act as if you believe, and then you'll end up having it. That seems like a bad way to get faith.
Yeah, you know, as soon as you said that, I was heading in the other direction.
Right, running from that direction.
Yeah.
Solidifying.
Well, only because if I did that and I felt faith,
right,
then I would doubly distrust it.
Right.
Because it's something that I had because of some emotional experience or some crowd effect or some projected desire or something that would, my rational self would then be more skeptical of the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Well, you started though by saying that you don't think you believe anything on faith, that your scientific background requires that you've got good reasons, good evidence for everything that you believe. And I guess I wonder whether that's true.
Well, so, I'm not saying that that's true. I'm saying that I would like that to be true,
right,
and I would try to make that true. And I try to be very careful about what I believe. If I believe something and this evidence is not there, I'll say, well, I believe it, but I know that the evidence is not complete. But try to be very logical about what I know and I don't know.
But there are things, for example, your faith that your wife loves you doesn't require that you hire a private investigator and go around snooping to see whether you can catch any evidence to the contrary. So, at least in some cases, now of course you have plenty of evidence in favor of it, but you don't go around looking for additional evidence.
Sure.
And perhaps that's true for lots of things that are important in ordinary human life. Perhaps it's also true in the case of some issues of what's morally important. That some things I'm sure just seem to you obviously wrong, immoral to do, and yet there are people that don't agree with that, and it might be hard to reason with them. It might be hard to talk them out of it. So that it's not clear to me that for everything that we believe, we have to have good, solid evidence or proofs or reasons in favor of it.
The analogy between morality and belief in God is a very interesting one, because I would be very uncertain about the God piece, but on morality I would feel that this intuitive faith that you would have something is right or something is wrong is very much based on your cultural background, your family, your schools, your peer group, and very culturally related, because in different cultures there are different levels of what is corruption in different societies. There are different people have different views of how narrow or broad that is, for example. So that I see the cultural development. But again, if I'm dealing in faith, and I accept a cultural basis for morality, and I'm pleased with the one I have, brought up in the United States. But if that same mechanism applied to faith in God, I would not like it, because I don't want my faith in God, if that's what I would have, being built on a cultural particularity.
Well, I think that what most people believe depends in both instances on the culture that they're in, and whom they associate with, and what the people around them think, and so on. But just as if you can identify sources in American culture that lead you to have certain moral views, you could also be a moral reformer. You could have some moral view seem to you to be so obviously true that you could say to the rest of your fellow citizens, hey, we're getting this one wrong. Our culture is mistaken on this topic. So I think you can find yourself having a firm moral belief that differs from the moral belief that you're raised with. And I think the same thing can happen with respect to faith in God. You could find yourself believing in a way that's different from your family or your friends or the people you grew up with. And something could strike you in the same way as, yes, this is right.
Is faith something that I can develop myself, or is it something that is absolutely essential that God placed in me?
Speaking as a philosopher, I don't know how to answer that question. As a religious believer, I think it is God placing it in you. And I don't know what you can do to make him act in the right way except to be open.
I can tell you I'm having fun, but I'm not sure my faith is getting any better as you as a believer might define it.
As a philosopher, I don't know. It's a mystery. I mean, I find myself with faith, and it's similar to the faith that my parents had and people I grew up with, but in some respects different, in some respects influenced by other philosophers, especially a lot of really, really good philosophers, contemporary philosophers, who have shown me ways about being a believer and a philosopher, and especially by having read some of the great historical figures, Aquinas, Anselm in the 11th century, Augustine in the 5th century, and so on. So I find myself influenced by all those people, but I guess I can't tell you, I can't separate that from my philosophical life and don't know what it would be like without that life.